Do you have anything else planned for the future? Or anything? Are you
Well,
working
on
on
strike. It could be over for me. No, I mean, we're all on strike, and so I'm not in development, but when the strike ends, I'm going to sort of look around and see what I want to do. It's always an interesting question because the way I approach creating a show for TV is I have to understand why television needs it. Like, what is it going to speak to? And it's been really hard because, you know, we have, TV is just so inundated with stuff now, and it's so hard getting a handle on what it is people want to see. Not in terms of trying to answer that need, but just trying to speak to some storytelling that people, you know, could find useful these days. When I created Judging Amy, I was a single mother working in a man's world, and I really wanted to tell that story. I wanted to create a woman, a single mother in a professional world who is coping. I was really tired of seeing women on television who were just victims who couldn't cope, which I always found that hilarious because if you've ever seen a man with a cold, you know that we can cope. We're the copers, you know. Not you, and not you. So anyway, that was the driving force. It's just always trying to sort of represent a story that people can relate to.
Have you ever thought of putting like a modernized, like Christ-like character into something as opposed to just having like the God kind of character?
I think about that, but one of the reasons, you know, one of the things when you do a show like this, of course, you're opening yourself up to all kinds of criticism. You know, the show did win awards, got a lot of praise, but I got to see the other thing. You know, I got to see the mail I got for writing a gay God. That was fun. And, you know, and so you're just opening yourself up, and particularly the image of Christ is so, people are so, first of all, what image of Christ? The Christ story is different in just about every religion and in every Christian religion. So the job of trying to figure out what a Christ figure is that could be truthful enough. And, you know, in the Catholic religion, if Jesus is back, it's over. So where are we going with this, you know? And if Jesus is back, he doesn't, he's not born as a child. So that's another thing. He just comes back. And, you know. But I have thought about that. The trick is to do, I think the interesting thing would be to do a Christ-like figure instead of actually doing Christ. So these are the questions that you have to confront all the time. Like, I never actually did the devil because then we're saying the devil is real. And then you're telling a whole different story, you know. And so it's an interesting area, and it's really tricky.
I was actually going to ask you about that and what went into your decision to not have someone actually portray the devil, really show people that have been influenced by that and have like the evil come out of, you know what I mean? Like, you showed characters who had evil influences, you know, and that overpowered them more than like good things. So what went into that decision to not have?
I couldn't put anything into Joan of Arcadia, theologically speaking, that I didn't feel that I had experienced to be true, right? So when you're talking about you know, we're saying this is God and this is how God operates in the world. So the things that I actually made a statement about God were very small. They weren't, you know, and so I couldn't do that with the devil because then I'm trying to answer a question for somebody that the devil is real and it's an actual physical entity rather than just an energy, you know. And in a lot of theological circles, people can't answer that question. You know, it was so funny, I created a show called Demons, which was about an exorcist, and it never got on the air. But I decided my approach with that show was, I'm telling a fictional story. I'm not trying to put forth a theological construct. So now I can say whatever I want to about the devil. So in that world, the devil was real and possessed people. So, and I had to do all this research into it, and I was really kind of agnostic about the devil. I didn't know what I thought about it, and so I went into the research just to see what I found, what other people thought, and certainly about exorcism, possession. Anything I haven't seen, I don't know. These people really seem to believe it, but I haven't seen it, so I don't know. But for the purposes of fictional storytelling, as I set this up to be fictional, and the mythology was really airtight. But I called it my sister, who is kind of she's also a writer, and she's written books on possession, the devil and stuff, and she is the expert on the subject. So I called her up and I said, yeah, who should I talk to? You know, I mean, should I talk to, do you know any good priests that I could talk to about this? And she said, good luck finding a priest who believes in the devil. And that is sort of really kind of true. It's a modern concept that a lot of religions have decided that we're not taking that with us, you know, because we don't know. And so the devil is a much murkier area in a lot of religions than, you know, than God is. So that's one reason I just decided not to take it on.
I have two questions, I think. The first is, since the question of evil seems to permeate so many television shows now, and since I'm sure everything you do is wonderful, why do you think they didn't pick up demons? Was it too head-on?
You know, the reasons that people make these decisions now are so corporate that I don't think the quality of it comes into it. I think they tested it, and you know, testing is when they showed a bunch of people in Las Vegas and they say what they think. But even the people, the marketing people who created this device say that we use it wrong. It's really unreliable, it's antiquated, and I think that there was some questionable testing with it, because the reason it tested strangely is because it's very hard for people to turn the dial saying, yeah, I felt great about the devil. You know, you're watching scary stuff and you can be enjoying it, but it doesn't translate into your brain where you turn the dial up saying, yeah, this is great. So anything that's tense or anything like that often tests strangely, because it's asking people to say, you know, yeah, I'm going with it. It has nothing to do with whether they're actually entertained or not. But I think about that all the time. I think that it so would have fit into the landscape of TV right now. I don't know.
What do you think of Dexter?
You know, I've only seen the pilot, and I think it's really interesting. It's hard for me to talk about it actually, but a lot of people love it, and I just find it interesting that there's a show about an evil character that is a protagonist, and that that's a hero, you know, and that they've given him some elaborate justification to keep him that way, that he only heals bad people, right?
And I think it's fascinating, not necessarily in your life.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating too, and that's the way I approach stuff like that. I really try to look at the landscape of television and go, oh, isn't that fascinating that that we want to look at that? Why? You know, what is that saying? And I probably have to watch the show to have an answer to that. But I find it really interesting that at least we are making evil complicated, you know, and I have much more frustration when I watch the images of evil being simplified, because it's one of the most complicated, difficult things to deal with and to recognize. And so, yeah.
One other question was, what's so different today about doing television is with the internet, you can really track what your fans are saying, and you can see what they do with your characters and your stories. Did you pay attention to fan boards and message boards when you were doing Joan? And if so, do you think people were getting what you wanted them to get?
Yes, I paid particular attention to televisionwithoutpity.com because they loved it and they had really an interesting debate about it. Usually I would go in there and you're always surprised at stuff that you didn't realize you put in there, or maybe didn't put in there, or just people's interpretations. And I paid attention to just sort of see if I was sort of misleading people or not, or if I had to correct things, or to see whether or not they were getting it. But mostly everyone was getting it. And I always said that I created the show to start the discussion. That's what I wanted to do, was have the discussion. I didn't have a campaign. I didn't have a thing I wanted anybody to believe. It's just that I always enjoy discussions of spirituality, smart ones, without taking a stand necessarily, and I wanted just to get people talking about it. It was interesting when I was interviewing writers for the show. Every writer's interview, they usually take about 10 minutes. They come in, you talk about what you've been doing, and I liked your script, and whatever. Every meeting was about, you know, half an hour to an hour long because of how much the writers had to say about their own spiritual experiences, and almost all of them were either undecided or just atheist, or, you know, it wasn't about their own beliefs. And I had a rule when I hired writers that they just had to be open. They just had to be open to this idea, because if they were shut down to it, it was going to come through. I didn't think that you could fake these questions about spirituality.